Welcome to CISO Interviews, where Affinia hosts cybersecurity executives sharing career advice, actionable insights, and tips so that you can enhance your career and succeed as well.
Carraig, thank you so much for joining us today. As we start, can you say a few words about your role in the organization?
Sure. So I currently lead the cybersecurity and compliance function for Avnet globally. Avnet is one of the largest supply chain companies in the world for electronics. So while we're not the most known name, we are in everybody's pocket and or living room and or car. And it's fun to be part of that supply chain.
Awesome. And how big is the org?
So we have real estate in tens and tens of countries. We're global, absolutely global. We have headquarters in Phoenix here in the US, in Germany, and in Singapore.
Mm.
So we're very broad, a few thousand, I don't know, 15, 20,000 employees. Pretty good size organization.
It's amazing. And well, that kind of paints the point in the career arc, but how did it get started in cybersecurity? What was the first role that sparked your interest?
Honestly, it was an accident more than anything. Just happened chance. My first career was in the intelligence world. I spent many years doing human intelligence as well as biometric and identity intelligence. Spent a lot of time overseas, contracting on various contracts. But the contracting world is kind of ugly, right? And they would come in, new contractors would come in, they would underbid, they would offer you to keep your job if you wanted to take a pay cut. And at one point there at the end, I didn't want to take the pay cut, and a friend offered me a role as a cybersecurity analyst over at a new shop they were building at the Department of Agriculture.
Interesting. And how does experience as the human intelligence officer, how does it translate to cybersecurity world? I think everything is moving so fast. The types of APTs and just the adversaries that we're facing is just, it's not teenage hackers anymore. It's state-sponsored enterprise-sized organizations with vacation plans and HR policies and whatnot.
Business, yeah.
Exactly. And how does this experience being in intelligence translate to cybersecurity?
I think it really brought two things. One, the curiosity aspect, right? In the intelligence world, you're trying to glean little bits from here and there to build a bigger picture, to build a picture that you believe has some credibility, that you can action. I mean, soldiers are often risking their lives to go and action intelligence that you bring in. And as a result, you want to make sure you have your facts straight. And so the curiosity of asking the questions and understanding, what is the situation? What are the facts? I think goes a long way. I think the other big benefit, frankly, was just not growing up in the IT space and not assimilating or having been ingrained with some of the traditional mindsets that we've seen, unfortunately, still prevail in some organizations today, where cybersecurity organizations almost take a pride in being a blocker instead of an enabler.
Interesting.
And so it allowed me to bring a different perspective. It allowed me to bring a history and experience with influence, with working with others and building relationships into an arena that was lacking in that regard. And frankly, that's what I credit with, how quickly I was able to build programs and move up in various organizations.
Interesting. And it's an interesting perspective because, again, in the corporate world, to your point, cybersecurity is sometimes viewed as a department of no, but I think that's changing very quickly, because I'm hearing specifically from executive search firms that the searches they're running, the CISOs are expected half the time to be client facing, because cybersecurity is not just a cost center, it's part of the value that the organization provides, which I think is a huge change. And I think if as much as anything helps with spreading just understanding of cybersecurity within the organization across different functions, and also within when you communicating to the C-level executives, to the board and CEOs and whatnot, which is, I think it's interesting. From your career perspective, from all the years of your experience, what would be your advice for some of the junior professionals who are, well, maybe in various roles in technology, looking to switch to cybersecurity, maybe early on, or maybe kind of in various other career venues, but they look at cybersecurity space and see an opportunity and see that's growing. What will be your advice? What are some of the 2-3 things they should spend their time on to set them up for success?
Cybersecurity historically was a very technical function, and there are still absolutely technical aspects of every cybersecurity role. The challenge is that as it becomes more known to the businesses, especially for those businesses that are interested in building a stronger posture and leveraging that posture as a differentiator, as you note, right? Many of these new roles that you're hearing about are client facing for a reason, because clients care now more than they ever have. But what we have in the cybersecurity industry is a dearth of people who have relationship experience, right? Building relationships, building connections, building a network. Right now, everybody and their brother wants to get into cybersecurity at a junior level. And people talk about a talent shortage, and I don't see that when it comes to the more junior level roles. What I see is a shortage of more senior folks who have the resources or the time to mentor and upskill those new folks that join, right? So if you're going to be part of the horde trying to get into cyber, because cyber is seen as a way to earn good money without necessarily having all of the college degrees, which is just the reality that we have today. Right now, cyber pays a premium. So the way to get in, the number one way to get in, my advice would be know your technical stuff, sure, but focus on the relationships. Who do you know? Who have you asked to mentor you? What local events are you going to go and build those networks and those relationships? Virtually all of my recent hires are either because I saw somebody somewhere and they made a good impression, because a peer of mine made a recommendation of, hey, you need to check this person out, right? Or sometimes we're even just interns that ended up working out great and we kept them on. But when we have entry-level roles posted, it's just a mountain of resumes that come in.
Interesting. So, and is it really kind of you mentioned the shortage is mid-level director and VP level executives? Because it seems that, again, from talking to executive search organizations, the number of opportunities at the C-level are fairly limited. So it sounds like there's a lot at the SOC analyst level, at the entry level.
It's more the middle area.
The gap. Interesting.
Yeah. It's more like your senior analyst level, senior engineer level that I see more of a gap, more of a need. I mean, onboarding new talent takes time and resources. Mm-hmm. It takes somebody experienced to pull them under their wing and show them how that company operates.
Certainly. Well, again, going back to the point that everything is changing so fast, if you look at the cybersecurity landscape, what are the top 3 challenges, problem areas that you're thinking of?
So maybe an atypical question, but one of the things that I think of that weighs on me is we have a lot of new, interesting technology coming about. We have a lot of folks talking about things like quantum and AI, and those things are important to know about and for the potential implications that they're going to have. My concern and one of the main things I think about is, as we get distracted by the new shiny objects, we're losing focus on the core competencies, on the crossing our T's and dotting our I's to make sure that we have the original bases covered before we start worrying about the fancy stuff, right? Is AI a threat? Sure. I mean, I haven't seen a Nigerian prince email in a while because ChatGPT helps you write really good social engineering emails, right? And on the dark web and other sites, they already have AI LLMs that don't necessarily have the ethical boundaries that the more popular ones do, right? Helping people write malware and other types of software. And some of the startups coming out are AI driven, which is interesting, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of lessons learned. I think we're very early in some of those stages, but I think we need to focus on the core stuff: identity, who is who. When AI gets good enough that it can verbally, as in like audibly, mimic who you are, Misha, how do I know that I'm actually talking to you and not a deep fake that looks and sounds like you? How do we authenticate each other if we can no longer rely on our eyes and our ears? Those are some of the things that I think about in that space, because we don't do identity well now as an industry.
And to your point, if you actually listen to the portions of the Senate hearing on the United Healthcare case, and it seems the major issue was that the multi-factor authentication was unenabled, which is really kind of a housekeeping issue. It's not advanced technology or even social engineering. It's like fairly basic
I mean, we
housekeeping.
have all these fancy tools, but go ask any red team what their number one vector is that they get used to get into organizations. It's always phishing. I've never met a single red teamer who didn't share that the number one vector that they were able to use was phishing, right? And so if phishing is still that effective and we are the weak link, it doesn't matter what tools you have or what shiny objects you're chasing if you don't have the basics locked down.
Which kind of makes sense. I mean, why spend all the effort and the cost of acquiring something like a 0 day and breaking the wall in the castle? They can just pick the lock and open the door.
Right. Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
that's one. What are two and three?
Let's see. So one is is focusing on the basics. Two, I think we're going to see a shift in talent. I think we're going to potentially see a shift moving from everybody wanting to be part of cyber because it pays well to maybe more everybody wants to be part of AI because it pays well. I think we're going to see a lot more cyber executives get worn out, potentially leaving. You know, I have a lot of peers that are kind of worn out, right? We have all of these government regulators trying to regulate us. We have CISOs being sued by the government, CISOs being charged by the government. And it's become more of a personal liability than many are comfortable with, right? And I think that's all going to trickle down. It's a high stress environment. You're always on edge. You're always waiting for that next guy to come attack. And it's not for everybody long term. Everybody wants to get in because it pays well right now. But if there's a way to go and have a better, I don't know, a better work-life balance, maybe a better quality of life, and another high demand job that there really aren't enough of right now, like say AI as an example, then I suspect we'll see a migration.
Interesting. I did see a handful of posts on LinkedIn when someone said tongue in cheek that everyone in cybersecurity wants to be a CISO, and everyone who is a CISO wants to advise startups or be a professor, write a book, or anything else. So, which to your point, which sounds like it's almost like a notch on the belt, and it's just it's like a checkbox that you want to check once or twice or three times, and then you're gonna do something else to avoid the high stress, to avoid the potential personal liability. Which I wonder, is this a trend that's going to continue, or do you think the stress levels and the scrutiny from the government is going to change anytime soon?
I don't know. I think we're going to see the CISO role eventually evolve into less of a security leader and more of a business leader. I think we're going to maintain some of the core security components that we need. And I think it's important to have that baseline. But for those companies right now that you're talking about that are looking for client-facing CISOs, it's generally because their customer base cares about security. It's because security plays a larger role in how they win people over or how they secure the customers that they have. And as a result, they're going to need CISOs that can play in that environment. Mm-hmm. Right? It's a different skill set. And I think that's one of the challenges we have now, frankly. A lot of very technical people who are promoted into leadership roles, and we fail them by expecting them to lead when it's a different skill set, and we've never worked with them or taught them how to lead, taught them how to manage other folks. We just made the assumption that they would be good at it because they were good at something totally different in the technical space.
Well, it sounds like a lot of career coaching, not a lot, but I mean, people at that stage can use a career coach to kind of help 100%. Guide through some of the less technical skills, which is, I think is very interesting. Switching gears a little bit, I know every time I bring up a topic of cybersecurity vendors, I almost always get a visceral reaction. And some people say, well, my phone is ringing at 7 in the morning on a Sunday. My personal cell phone is ringing. Mm-hmm. I'm getting things sent to my home that I didn't ask for. And also I'm getting calendar invites to events from people I don't even know. So it's very kind of aggressive tactics. And you didn't mention relationships. And I think it's the current state of affairs is just a sign of a lot of venture money going to cybersecurity and very short-term focus on sales teams and business teams of those cybersecurity vendors that really may, given the incentives, don't have a lot of patience to kind of really invest in their relationship. What would be your advice to some of startups who want to, what's a way to put their best foot forward in building the relationship, and from your perspective?
So there's 2 CROs that I've gotten to know a little bit, and I really appreciate them. And in fact, I'll call them out. So you have the CRO from Devo and the CRO from Valance. And in both cases, these are CROs that believe strongly that the best sales strategy is word of mouth from really, really happy customers, right? If people are calling me all day, every day, especially when my voicemail literally says, if you're a vendor, please leave me an email or reach out on LinkedIn or something. Don't leave me a message. And then I get the message, hey, I'm not a friend, but, and they pitch me anyway, right? We're looking for partners. Most of us in this space are looking for partners. We're looking for sales folks that are offering technology that we need, or maybe not yet, but either way, aren't wasting our time. A couple of weeks ago, I think it's about 3 weeks ago now, somebody called my wife's personal phone asking for me, right? If that happens, I'm not going to talk to you. I don't care how good your technology is. It's mind-blowing to me. The people that call me twice and back to back to make me think it's an emergency from my kids or something, right? It's to try to get me to answer. These tactics are old school. And I have a hard time believing that they work. The people that email me and say, well, this is my 4th email and you haven't responded, so I guess you don't care about securing your organization. It's like block list, right? I get hundreds of emails a day. I'm not going to respond to all of them. So those who are good at leveraging their networks, who are good at building partnerships that are so strong that when I talk to my peers, all they can do is talk to me about how great their latest tool is or their latest product is. Those are the ones that are going to have the most success, in my opinion.
Interesting. I think it's everything you say can be put in a quote, and we do work with vendors, and it's something that I'll share because I think it's a very prescient advice, and playing the long game and not investing and indulging in very kind of silly games that don't really lead to anything. It's just mind-boggling why people still engage in those overly aggressive tactics that don't really work. It's an equivalent of shooting yourself in the foot. I can't wait for all those things to go away. I know we're coming up on time, Carraig, but I know you mentioned relationships and networks. I'm sure you're probably part of so many different associations and groups and meetups and private Slack channels and WhatsApp group chats and whatnot. What would be your advice for Affinia? I know we try to deliver content and deliver networking opportunities that are of value, and we try different things, and some of them work, some of them don't. will be advice for us? What do you think we should double down on? What we should change?
I mean, you've done a phenomenal job building a huge ecosystem of what, 17,000-ish security leaders, I think is what your number's at, isn't it? Isn't that the latest numbers?
It's more, it's 1,800.
Or 1,800, I mean, security leaders. And that's pretty incredible, right? That's a huge amount of brain trust to have. And having these kinds of calls where we can help out others, hosting some of the local events that Affinia has hosted for networking purposes have been great. I think you have a really big asset on your hands, and it'll be really nice to see how you leverage that to continue both growing Affinia, but also helping each of those within Affinia grow themselves, right? Expand their networks, find additional opportunities, learn more about maybe spaces they aren't familiar with, and helping others out there get into a position where they can later give back and offer something similar.
Awesome. Well, we hope to continue to provide something of value. And to your point, I do believe it's an asset, but I want to be very careful on providing hopefully 10 times more value than we ask in return.
You guys have been great. Really enjoyed being part of it, and recommend it to those I talk to. So
awesome. Well, Carraig, thank you so much for your time. For all non-vendors out there, what's the best way to connect? What's the best way to reach out?
LinkedIn.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much for your time.
No, my pleasure. And have an awesome day.
Thank you.